I'm making stuffed pasta shells, marry me chicken style. This is going to be good. Here we go. So here I have about a 10 ounce to 12 ounce chicken breast that I just sort of split open. I'm seasoning it with garlic and herb seasoning blend. You can use salt and pepper. And in a preheated pan with 2 tablespoons of cooking oil, I'm going to sear both sides and let it cook through. You could also use shredded rotisserie chicken in place of this. If you are using pre-shredded rotisserie chicken, you'll need maybe 10 to 12 ounces of that. Once it has cooked through like this, I'm going to remove it from the pan, and do not discard that pan. I'm saving all of that flavor and fond for the cream sauce. I'm going to let this rest. Then I'm just going to shred it and set it aside until I'm ready to use it. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder and add it to my boiling water. This is what I'm going to pre-boil the pasta in. And I'm using a 12-ounce box of jumbo shells. This is going into my boiling water, and I'm going to cook this for about 8 to 9 minutes. Technically, that's just the package instructions. Be sure to check that when you're buying other brands. So after about 8 to 9 minutes, I'm going to remove them from the boiling water and place them on an oiled baking sheet. You'll want to let these set and cool so that they're easier to stuff and work with. And I'm also going to reserve around 2 cups of the pasta water. In all, for the recipe, I end up using 1 3/4 cup of this pasta water. Now let's work on the filling for the shells. Here I have 15 ounces of ricotta cheese going into a large bowl. I'm also adding 6 ounces of frozen and pressed spinach. It ends up being a ½ cup. Here I'm adding some parmesan cheese that I grated and some mozzarella cheese, a cup. I'm also going to be adding 1 large egg. And here I'm adding a teaspoon of Italian herb blend, and now some cracked black pepper, a ½ teaspoon of salt, and then I'm just going to give this a really good mix. And this is what I'm going to stuff the shells with. And the ratios of the cheese and the spinach, it's up to you. If you want more, you can add more. I just think the 6 ounces of frozen spinach just works. Now for the shredded chicken. And then you just want to combine that, and then it's ready. The chicken stuffing for these shells, it's so versatile whether you want to add a marinara sauce or the cream sauce that I'm going to make. So to stuff these are cool enough to handle. I'm just going to add maybe like a 1.5 tablespoons of this into the shell. I'm not really measuring, and I might not be able to fill every single shell, but it's always a good idea to just boil more shells than you need, because sometimes the shells like tear or rip, so it's good to have extra. But I'm just going to continue the process until these are filled and I run out of the mixture that goes in them. So I ended up creating 32 stuffed shells, which is perfect for my 9x13 baking dish, and this is what I'm left with. So let's work on the cream sauce. Remember that pan that I cooked the chicken in? So I'm adding 4 tablespoons of butter, and it still had some of the cooking oil left over from the chicken. So if there isn't any left in there, add a tablespoon of cooking oil. Now for a little bit of diced onion, I'd say 1 or 2 tablespoons. And I'm just going to saute that. And you'll notice my pan wasn't super hot. You don't want a super hot pan when you're working with butter, by the way. Okay, now I'm going to add a cup of sun-dried tomatoes. The amount you want in this, if you want more, if you want less, it's up to you. I would say 3/4 cup to a full cup works for this. And I'm just going to continue the saute. Some people like to add tomato paste. You can do that. I didn't. Now I'm going to add 2 cloves of minced garlic. That goes in. And I'm just going to continue the saute here. This next ingredient, you can add less. I'm adding a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, and it doesn't make it super spicy, by the way. But I understand if you want maybe less of that, so you could start with a ½ teaspoon. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is add 8 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Shake that in. It's going to create a roux, and I'm going to cook out the flour over the course of 1 or 2 minutes. And you just want to constantly stir and combine everything. It's going to look like a hot mess, but it comes together great. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of that pasta water that I reserved. And like I said, be sure to reserve around 2 cups because I end up adding more to the sauce. So I'm going to mix that in. You want to work out any of the lumps from the roux. Here I'm adding 2 cups or 16 fluid ounces of heavy cream. Again, I'm working this in with the spoon. Eventually I'm just going to switch to a whisk. You want to make sure everything comes together and combines well and it's smooth and creamy. Here we go. So with a whisk, I'm going to gently mix that up. And I'm not working with a high heat, just a medium-low heat. Here I'm adding the other 3/4 of a cup of pasta water and just work that in. Make sure things are combined well. Still working with a medium-low heat. You can kind of crank it up a little. Here I'm going to add some cracked black pepper, and you'll want to taste this for seasoning and salt. I'm going to add some salt to taste, give it a mix. Now I'm going to add some grated Parmesan cheese. This is a little less than a cup going in. And just work that in. Honestly, I took 5 ounces of Parmesan cheese and grated it. And I used some for the sauce and I used some for the baking dish. So I'm pouring over this creamy sauce all over my pasta shells. And you'll want to do the best you can to make sure you pour a little bit of the sauce over each shell. And what I'm going to do is just spread what I can on top and just make sure that they're submerged. Now I'm going to add fresh basil. I had this box of basil and it kind of got oxidized. That's okay, I'm still going to tear some pieces on top. And you can see this is very much a flavor profile of something like the Tuscan chicken recipe or the Marry Me chicken recipe. So the rest of my Parmesan cheese goes on top of this. Just going to sprinkle that on top. And another cup of mozzarella on top. I typically like to pre-shred my own mozzarella cheese, but this is what the grocery delivery brought me. It's bagged mozzarella cheese. I'm going to go for it. Okay, so I am going to cover this with foil, and I'm going to be baking this in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes covered. And then after 20 minutes, I'm going to remove the foil and let it continue baking for an additional 15 minutes. And then after the additional 15 minutes, it's done and it's time to eat. And I want to give you a closer look. Once it's kind of bubbling on the edges and it has a little bit of crispy bits, it's ready. And it smells amazing. This is just perfection. And I'll probably make a side salad with some crusty garlic bread, and this is dinner. I like to garnish with cracked black pepper, some chopped parsley, I'm using dried parsley, and a little extra crushed red pepper flakes. It's so, so good. And the pasta is cooked perfectly. Comment down below what type of pasta dish, baked dish, or casserole you want to see next. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.